My greatest breakthrough came when I lost my home in foreclosure in 1982. In this educational episode, I'm going to reveal secret number one about myself, Doug Andrew, maybe some things that you did not know about my background, and I'm going to share with you what I learned, because these are secrets that I actually am very grateful that I learned throughout my career. So I'm Doug Andrew, and I've been a financial strategist and retirement planning specialist now for nearly 5 decades. I've been very, very blessed in my career to have authored now 12 best-selling books. And I'm going to share with you sort of how all that got started. But one of the greatest lessons that I was very fortunate to learn early in my career is how to take negative experiences in life and turn them into positive outcomes, okay? And be able to share the wisdom that I gained by going through hard times and then overcoming them, because a lot of people in the world would like to know how people overcame certain challenges. And so one of the biggest experiences that launched me to become a best-selling author was back in the late 1970s, and I'm going to start with that story to let you know sort of what happened in the background, because I started in 1974, and I was actually going to become an attorney, and so as a means to that end, I got my Series 1 securities license, and I got my insurance license, and I went out and began to help people optimize assets and minimize tax and what have you as a means to get myself through law school. Well, if you've never heard my story, my wife, after we got married, 3 months after our marriage, she got pregnant. 3 months after that, she became deathly sick, and we ended up in intensive care numerous times. Our baby was born normal, which was a miracle because she was in intensive care numerous times. She had a large football-sized cyst that was meshed between her pancreas and her liver. And this caused her to have several major surgeries. Her first major surgery was over 16 hours, and it made medical history. She was only one of about a dozen cases in the world. Well, I had to start and stop my senior year in college several times, and that was very frustrating. But having those licenses to sell securities and insurance allowed me to be able to work when I had time to work, and then be able to study in college or to take care of my wife and our little baby girl when she was born. Well, what ended up happening is from 1974 until 1978, in that 4-year period, I ended up becoming extremely successful in the financial services industry. In fact, the dean at the college, when he found out that I was very frustrated because I had to start and stop my senior year several times because of my wife's health, he said, well, how much are you making part-time? And I was making twice as much as he was, and he was the dean of the college. And he said, how much could you make if you were full-time? And I said, oh, double, triple that. He said, what are you doing in college? And actually, that was very good advice, because I learned more from rubbing shoulders with some of the top financial strategists in the world than in a classroom. I knew more than most of my professors, okay? Well, what ended up happening in 1978, my wife and I, we built our third home. Now, I knew enough about asset optimization and tax minimization that I had never paid out of my pocket a down payment. I've never paid a down payment for any home or piece of real estate. I've satisfied down payments, but not with my money, because of what I've learned about how money works. I'll come back to that. And so we built this third home 4 years after we were married. It was a beautiful 6,400 square foot home with 6 bedrooms on it, located on 2 acres on a canyon rim in central Utah. And I was going to add a little helicopter port, and because it was on the rim of a canyon, and be able to fly to my office, which was about 20 miles away, and then fly back home and land on my property with a little helicopter. I had all these great dreams. And we built that home clear back in 1978. And we loved it because it had cathedral beam wood deck ceilings. We could go out on the master bedroom deck and watch the deer and the elk bed down in the scrub oak below. It was incredible. And we built that home for $150,000. And I was able to finance 100% of that because I was able to get the property to satisfy the down payment. And I bought the 2 acres actually 4 years earlier when we were first married for $100 a month. And I got the seller of the lot, because it went up in value, to subordinate. So I was able to get in with no money down or no money out of my pocket because the property satisfied the down payment. Well, I was able to build this home for $150,000. We thought we had the world by the tail. Why? Because when we moved in, that home appraised for double that, $300,000. In fact, about $305,000. So I didn't put any money into the house, but I had about $150,000 of equity instantly when we moved in, because it appraised for $300,000, and I was only into it $150,000. So of course we thought we had the world by the tail. Well, in 1980, I don't know if you know history well enough to realize what happened in 1980. A recession came across America, and there was an energy crisis. It was the end of the Carter administration, and Ronald Reagan came in. And he was trying to turn around the economy, which he did, but it took him 2 terms to really get it straightened out. And it set up the prosperous decade of the 1990s, by the way. But there were a lot of people that really got hurt financially in 1980 during that energy crisis. In fact, in Houston, Texas, that year, 16,000 homes got foreclosed on in Houston, Texas. Now, 16,000 homeowners all of a sudden didn't become bad people. They just couldn't make their mortgage payments. And when you get behind on your mortgage payment for 3 months on a trust deed, the mortgage company, they don't care how much equity you have or anything like that. They can come in and begin to foreclose on your property. So 16,000 homeowners lost their homes in foreclosure, and some of them have been paying extra principal payments to the mortgage company, trying to get their mortgage paid off. But see, they didn't realize that when you're paying off your mortgage and you have a lot of equity, you're actually going to get foreclosed on sooner than those who do not have a bunch of equity that owe a lot. The mortgage companies work with you if you're sort of upside down, because in a recession like 1980, home values come down. And all of a sudden, if you were mortgaged 80% loan to value, maybe the home now only appraises for what the mortgage is. But if you're paying it off, they're going to foreclose on you and take the cash, because that's the deal. But if you owe as much or more than what it's worth, they work with you, okay? Well, what happened? 3 things occurred that we never dreamed would happen simultaneously. From 1981 and into 1982, we had a dishonest supervisor with the firm that I was working with, and he embezzled money from 3 of us. And so as we were challenging that, they came in to do the investigation, and the main company froze all of our income. We were based on commissions. And so we were without an income for 9 months. Now, it only takes 3 months behind before a mortgage company comes in to start to foreclose. And so we got behind on our mortgage. We had money, but it was being held in an escrow while they were investigating this guy. Well, the other 2 individuals, they were also working with the same company I was. They lost their homes in foreclosure because they got behind on their mortgages. Fortunately, I had a timeshare at a ski resort that I had bought for $3,500, and it was worth $10,500. We sold that, and we took the equity out of that timeshare, and we brought the delinquent mortgage current, and it helped us sort of stay afloat while we didn't have any income. Well, after a few months, I got behind again. And so fortunately, I owned a duplex that we had actually built and I was renting it out, and that had equity in it. And so I sold that duplex, and that allowed me to bring my delinquent mortgage current a second time. But after that money ran out, we still didn't have any idea when we would have the cash release that was being held in escrow, that was frozen. And so in desperation, my wife and I said, well, we have another 2 acres next door. We'll just start over and build another home. Let's sell this dream home. Well, this was the beginning of 1982. And so we put the home on the market. Now, we had a bona fide appraisal for $305,000. But again, when a recession hits, home values go down because the supply is greater than the demand. And so we had no takers. We lowered the price. We listed it for $295,000. We lowered it down to $275,000, then $265,000, then $225,000, then $195,000. Now, I will never forget the day that my wife and I walked into the county courthouse in Provo, Utah, and we watched that beautiful dream home get foreclosed on at the sheriff's auction. Now, we went out and immediately bought another home within a week with no money down and no credit, okay? Again, most of the properties I've acquired did not require a credit check because I usually get it financed from the seller, and I've never paid a down payment. So I didn't need money, and I didn't have good credit because of the foreclosure, but we got into another home within a week. But this is what I learned by losing that home in foreclosure. That $150,000 of equity, I owed $150,000. It was worth at the high point $300,000. I had $150,000 of equity. That equity meant absolutely nothing. It was just a number on a sheet of paper, my balance sheet, if I could not access it. And so going through that negative experience, I said, what did I learn? I didn't pay a down payment. The equity happened because the house appreciated, and I thought that was a good thing. Well, yeah, the house appreciating was a good thing, but I left it tied up in the property, and I learned that real estate equity is not liquid when you need it. When you need it the worst, it's the hardest to get. You cannot tell the mortgage company, I got plenty of equity. They're going to foreclose on you sooner than later if you got a lot of equity. You can't say, oh, I've been sending you extra principal payments for years. I calculate I'm, a year and a half ahead in payments. They don't care. Whatever you send against your mortgage doesn't matter. The next payment is due in 30 days. And if you go 3 months without making a mortgage payment, they'll foreclose on you. It doesn't matter how much extra you paid down on your mortgage. So real estate equity is not liquid when you need it. When you need it the worst, it's hardest to get. You can't go to a bank and say, hey, will you loan me money? I got plenty of equity. They loan you money based on your ability to repay. I didn't have an income, okay? So real estate equity is not liquid. Number 2, it was not safe because what was worth once $300,000 dropped down to under $150,000. It disappeared overnight during the recession. So it was no better than the stock market. Maybe it wasn't quite as volatile, but real estate equity does not have safety of principal. You can lose money in the value of your real estate when it goes down because that equity will also just disappear almost overnight. Number 3, equity in real estate always has the same rate of return. 0, zip, nada. It didn't matter. If it was mortgaged to the hilt or free and clear, the rate of return on equity is always 0, okay? We get confused because if the property appreciates or the debt reduces, that somehow equity has a rate of return. The equity, that house is going to do that, go up in value or down in value, regardless of whether it's mortgaged to the hilt or free and clear. Has nothing to do. Equity has no rate of return. It's always 0. Does that make sense? And so those are the lessons I learned. And so I went out and I said, I need to write a book about this. I learned a lesson here of keeping my real estate equity separated. And that's why ever since then, I've always been able to buy a property again with no down payment. But when my house went up in value, I always made sure the equity stayed separated. That's why I refinance. But if you refinance and you keep the equity separated into a position of liquidity, and where I choose to do that is in a max funded indexed universal life insurance policy, because that is liquid. Why else do I do that? Because that's how money works. In my indexed universal life insurance policies, which I call the LASERFund, my money the last 40 years has been earning an average of 9.62%. The last, since 1997, it's been averaging about 11.17, netting 10. Let's just go down to 9, okay? On $1 million of real estate equity, if I have it over here, it's earning 9%, let's say, that's $90,000, and that's tax-free if you use a max-funded indexed universal life policy. I'm earning $90,000 tax-free. That's compound interest. If I borrow on a mortgage at 4.5% interest, tax deductible in a 33% bracket, that's only a net to me of 3%. So on $1 million of real estate equity now, I pay $30,000 a year, but I make $90,000. How much more is $90,000 than $30,000? Don't say 60. It's 300% more. In other words, would you hire an employee for 30 grand that made you an extra 90 grand? Would you buy a widget machine for 30,000 that made you an extra 90,000? That's called a 300% return on employment cost or equipment cost. It actually makes money. You can get out of debt faster than sending extra principal payments to the mortgage company. If you will set that money aside in a compounding account, tax-free, you'll accumulate more money faster to pay off a mortgage if that's what you want to do. 2.5 years faster by having the money compounding tax-free at a rate of return greater than the net cost of the mortgage. You'll have enough money to pay off the house 2.5 years faster than sending that money against your mortgage. And so that's what I began to teach people. My very first book, first out of 12, was called Missed Fortune, because of the fortunes people miss out on when they simply don't know what they don't know. And I share that story of me losing that house in foreclosure in the second chapter. Do you know that when I sent this to 2 editors, one of them in Seattle sent back and said, "You just lost all credibility as an author of a financial book, admitting you lost your house in foreclosure." And I thought, really? That's one of the most credible stories I tell, because people like to know how you sort of picked yourself up from your bootstraps and recovered. Telling that story made that a best-selling book, and I told it in the next book. And I look back and I have helped thousands of people avoid losing their homes in foreclosure. And I have been compensated 100-fold. In fact, I tease my wife sometimes. I go, "Look how much money we've made since we lost that house in 1982 in foreclosure. Let's go lose another 20. No, once was enough." But the rate of return we got from taking a negative experience and sharing the wisdom actually made us way more than the $150,000 we lost. It has turned into north of $100 million in my career. That's a secret. You need to learn how to take negative experiences in life and turn them into positive outcomes. Now, maybe you're curious about this LASERFund that I referred to. This is where I keep my real estate equity, okay? This is where, instead of paying a big down payment, I keep it parked over here where it's liquid safe, earning a predictable rate of return greater than the net cost of the mortgage. And the LASERFund will show you how to pass the liquidity, safety, and rate of return test, because that's what LASER means, liquid assets safely earning returns. I would like to gift you a copy of this book. It's actually 2 books in one. This side is 14 chapters, about 200 pages with all the charts and graphs that explain how this works. If you're a right brain learner, you learn by stories. You flip it over and you read this one. This is about 100 pages, 12 chapters with 62 chicken soup for the financial soul stories. If you want to use your whole brain, then you read both of these books. But you simply go to LASERFund.com or click on the link below. You contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest of that cost. I'll pay for the book. I'll fire out a hard copy to you. You can also listen and learn, watch and learn, so there's options there. You can also check out some of the educational webinars we teach. But that's a little secret that's not so much a secret, but a lot of people don't realize that I learned some of my most valuable lessons by having setbacks. When you have anxiety, that spells opportunity. You need to turn your negative experiences into positive learning experiences and then share your wisdom with the world, and maybe you can become a best-selling author. But start out and read the book, The Laser Fund. So let me send one out to you, and this is to you and your brighter future.